Construction, the St. Barnabas Health System, Beaver County Career and Technology Center, Falcones Moon Township Ford, the YMCA, the Beaver Falls Municipal Authority, Patriot Home Care, Keystone Wellness Program, Fry Transportation Group, Freedom United Federal Credit Union, the Community College of Beaver County, Friendly Federal Credit Union, Fat Boy Cigars, Geneva College, and Beaver County Radio.
95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com, invite you to tune in to Sounds of Faith. Tune in Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 for a mix of the best sacred music of all time. Sounds of Faith is brought to you by Crawford Tire in Beaver, the William Murphy Funeral Home, City Rescue Mission, MRS Physical Therapy, Circle of Friends, J&J Spratt Funeral Home, and Rome Monument and Inspirational Gifts. Sounds of Faith. Uplifting, relaxing, and inspiring radio. Sunday mornings from 7 until 9 on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with WBVP, WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com.
Here's Dale Reckless from MRS Physical Therapy as he explains the importance of pre-sports testing to help you reduce the risk of injury.
The intrinsic factors are looking at things within our body that could be causing the problem. So that we start to look at as physical therapists, shoulder range of motion, forces at the elbow, things like that. We're looking at the whole kinetic chain. For example, turning your head side to side. If you have less than 39 degrees of that motion, you have a 9 times increased likelihood of an injury. So these intrinsic factors are both measurable and modifiable. So as a physical therapist, I can take a baseball player or any kind of athlete, I can do my tests on them and see if they're within normal limits or outside of normal limits. And based on research that's been done, I can tell if there's a likelihood of injury or not.
If you need physical therapy for any reason, choose the place your friends and neighbors do. MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater and Cranberry. Visit mrsphysicaltherapy.com.
The Pitt Panthers are looking to rebound from a dismal 2023. Follow the Panthers as Beaver County Radio will broadcast select games throughout the season. University of Pittsburgh football on Beaver County Radio is brought to you by Beaver Falls Municipal Authority, East Rochester and Tusca Shop and Saves, the True Value Hardware, inside East Rochester Shop and Save, Dr. C. Timothy Lipp, Tri-State Sporting Arms, Geneva College, Beaver Falls Athletic Department, the Fry Transportation Group, and Beaver County Radio.
You're listening to 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls. Welcome to the Best of Beaver County, presented by St. Barnabas, a weekly segment dedicated to putting the focus on the amazing things and the amazing people behind them in Beaver County. The Best of Beaver County is sponsored by and content is provided by St. Barnabas. The show airs every Thursday from 11 to 11:30 on WBVP, WMBA, 99.3 FM, and Facebook Live. Now, with no further ado, let's welcome host Mike Romai to introduce today's program.
And welcome to the Best of Beaver County on the St. Barnabas Radio Network. I'm Mike Romai, and our guest this morning is Lou VILLOTI, who is the president of the Beaver County Corporation for Economic Development. And it's something that we don't talk about often enough. Sometimes we get stuck in talking about the past and regurgitating the past and don't see the future. But we have to clear that out. And when we talk about the future, we have to talk about economic development. And it is happening all around us. And that's why we invite Lou VILLOTI back on the program today, because he's got his finger on the pulse of a lot of these things going on that we have yet to hear about or that is going on. And we're just oblivious to it. Lou, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. Always enjoy it.
It's fun to have you on because I get excited about it because, doing this for a living for so long, you always hear the negative side of things. It tends to be the negative side of things, businesses closing, people moving out and that sort of thing. But when I talk to you, it's like there's always something going on. And especially the past 10 years, I think, things have really improved in Beaver County.
It's a really exciting time in Beaver County. And I've talked about this a little bit with folks, but in the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's literally like the tap has been turned on and we have people looking all over the county for property and sites, and it's really exciting to work in this field right now and look at the future of the county.
Yeah, and why is this happening now? Why have industries or businesses finally found Beaver County?
So there's two types that we're working with now. Some of the expansions, the local expansions that we're seeing now, are companies that have increased their contracts with Shell. And so that's a great thing, primarily in logistics. And the second is the Inflation Reduction Act put in a tax credit, an energy tax credits for places that are called energy communities.
Let me see, the Inflation Reduction Act. That is something that comes from the federal government, the Biden administration,
yes.
After the COVID.
Yes, it was the second of two acts, and this one really, while it focused a lot on clean energy investments, but putting those investments in areas that were negatively impacted by the downturn in the energy industry, primarily the fossil fuel. So we have a number of communities that are in that geography, and we have companies right now that are looking very hard at doing things in that area. And so we are finalists in several large projects. I was telling you a little bit earlier, if we can get 10 or 15 projects moving at a time, that's kind of what we like, because maybe we can get one across the finish line. So we're very hopeful.
Yeah, and so businesses know about this incentive, this tax incentive.
They know very well, and they hop on the map is what they do, right? So before they even start, they hop on the map and say, okay, which place is going to qualify? And then we have, for example, both Aliquippa, I'll just use two examples. Aliquippa and Big Beaver Big Beaver Borough are in the energy communities. One is located right next to an interstate, and the other is located right next to the river with rail. So depending on what type of company you are, if you're looking into making that investment, you need river or rail, you look in Aliquippa or Midland, on areas like that. And if you need to be close to an interstate, you look at Big Beaver Borough. So we have an inventory that fits everybody's needs.
And is that uncommon in the States to be able to pinpoint where these places are and how close we are and what we have to offer in Beaver County?
Yes, I think that's what makes us right now, those locations, the river communities and the Big Beaver Borough community, ideal, because what they're looking at is those energy communities that also have other assets next to them. And that's what's important. So some of these energy communities, when you get out into Ohio, they're kind of in the middle of, no offense to Ohio, they're in the middle of nowhere, but here they're right on something. They're right on the interstate, they're right on the river, they have river and rail, infrastructure exists. So it's an exciting time to see these kind of projects start to come to fruition.
Yeah, it's all right, because we've known that Ohio's been off the radar for many years now.
It's been, especially the Cleveland area, but we won't go there.
We'll keep that off the map. But what do you say to people who speak negatively? And maybe, I'm in a cocoon because I talk to people in this job that are very negative about energy efficiency and these type of jobs that you're talking about, saying, oh, they're just wasting money.
Yeah, well, and so in my neck of the woods and what I do, I get both sides. I get those that say, we don't need the clean energy improvements. We don't need those things. And then there's the ones that say, or on the other side, who say, well, we don't want fossil fuels or we don't want to impact. So I like it because it's in the middle. But what I tell them primarily on both sides is that you need a little bit of both. You actually need a balanced energy portfolio and a balanced fossil fuel portfolio or just energy production portfoliof If they look at any of the work that's been done by anybody, even the most liberal economists in the world, when they look at it, say, no, you're never going to meet the energy needs with one side, so you need a balanced portfolio. So you do need to subsidize some of the energy, maybe a little bit on one end, to make the improvements. In some cases, Mike, I look at it almost, in some of these companies that we're talking to, I look at it almost like the space race, right? It was, we incentivized it, but the things that came out of it that we were able to then turn into profitability and commercialize as something as simple as Velcro, right? It came out of the space program. That's what we're going to see as we push these new energy efficient and energy production models. There will be parts that come out of it that will be very commercial. I have an example of that real quick. I had a company that I worked with, and a gentleman came in. He was from Monterey, California, and he said they were looking at. He's an investor, and he said we were looking at a new energy type of product, and it was some sort of small nuclear facility. He said I looked at everything they were doing, and I said no. And then he pointed at something, and he said, "What's that?" And they said, "Well, this is the battery that we use, and it's made like this." And he told me, and he said, "That's what we'll invest in." He said, "That's what's going to make money. That's what we'll invest in. That's what we'll do." And sure enough, they're building these new batteries, and it is become a commercial asset. So that's kind of how I look at that in the long run.
Right. But are these eye-opening experiences for you? Because we don't understand it. We probably won't even see it when it's developed or know anything about it. But you're on the ground floor with it.
Yeah, they open my eyes all the time, right? And I generally, when I meet with some of these companies, so a very common thing is we have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, kind of NDA. And when I meet with them, I said, I really don't have to sign an NDA. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I could never tell anybody what you're trying to do. But they are eye-opening, and we have worked with a lot of these companies. And what's going to be interesting is where we are. I talk about this a lot when there are still people who come to me and say, well, Shell hasn't done this or Shell hasn't done that, or we haven't seen the promise of Shell. And I went there, you do know Shell's not even under their operating permits yet. They're still under their construction permits. And to look at a project 2 years in of that magnitude and say, well, it's not done anything yet, that's not how this works. This takes 5, 10, 15 years to really to be able to see those sort of things. But everybody wants immediate response to that stuff. Yeah.
Sure. Want to see it now. Want to get it done now. Now, you're from Washington County, here in Beaver County, Allegheny County. We have had a reputation of a steel industry, where that's still what we're under in many people's eyes. When you talk to these big investors and people like that, do they ever say, yeah, but you have this mentality that you want to keep businesses out of here?
No, because that's changed. That really has changed. And in most common now is that's seen as an asset. There are very few communities, and Beaver County is one of them. There are very few communities left in Western Pennsylvania that have manufacturing still at their core. And no matter when we talk about all these things, these are energy companies, but they're energy manufacturers. They're coming here to build components. The other reason why we're attractive is because we have a workforce that has been in and understands manufacturing, and a lot of time the retraining or the upskilling takes very limited time because of what we're used to doing here.
It was a hurdle that we had to overcome when Shell was coming in here as well, though, because it was a different kind of workforce
Very
at the
much
time.
so.
And they said, we can't hire your people because you're not educated in this kind of stuff.
Right. So what they did is Shell invested in CCBC to build a training facility so that they could send local citizens and people here to retrain and upskill them for the appropriate jobs. And that has shown benefit because when companies go here, they know they know that asset exists. And there are people here that are learning those skills. The real hard part for us, and will be for a period of time, will be that we don't have enough people. The workforce that we have is limited. We're at 3.5% unemployment, and we're at our lowest unemployment for an extended period of time since prior to the decline of the steel industry. It's been months now that we have been at 4.5 or under 4.5. It's not just us, I should say. It is a regional and national phenomenon at the moment. But for us, that's a really tight workforce.
Wow. Ignorance is bliss then, because a lot of us aren't aware of these sort of things.
That's why you hear a lot of folks say, well, it's the jobs. And I said, if I had, and I mean this sometimes when I tell folks, when we have people come here, if somebody was to say we were going to land 500 jobs in Beaver County, we'd be hard-pressed to find 500 people to fill those positions. So we're trying to get ahead of the curve in that area, and there are a lot of things that we're working on in that regard.
Amazing. And you talk about education, and just recently through, I think it's Beehive in Beaver Falls, the colleges, Geneva, Penn State, Beaver, Community College of Beaver County, joining forces together. And this is unheard of because they were each under their own fiefdom, and people, picked the place that they wanted to be. Now they're all working together for educational benefits, but also the jobs that are coming into the area.
Yes, I talk about those are very vital partners that we have. The Beehive building was one of our projects. We built it. We constructed it for that purpose because we realized that the next step for Beaver County to take is one in entrepreneurship and 2 job readiness. And so they have the Bridges and Pathways program, those colleges and institutions that you talked about. And that too, when someone comes in, we say, look at what we're doing. We understand what needs to be done. We already have something in place that's positively impacting that. And I always tell them, come be a part of the solution. We can, and we'll help.
Yeah, I remember the last time we spoke, and you said when these investors, these businesses come and they want to hear about Beaver County, they want to look at our river towns and things like that. You said baby buggies and something else.
I said I sell dogs and strollers.
Yeah, dogs and strollers.
I want them to drive through town, and I want them to see people walking their dogs and pushing their baby strollers, because what that tells them is there's a vitality in that community. And it's a place where my workforce can come from, but it's also a place I can use to attract workforce. So we have an initiative, our business district initiative, that is designed specifically for that sort of thing.
And what kind of incentives are there for downtown areas, rivertown areas? Because you can show them that, but it seems as though a lot of the growth and home building is going on in the townships and the outskirts.
So it's a change in how the downtowns and these communities operate. They are now, these business districts that are in these river towns are not just population centers like they once were, but they are still the business districts for those other areas as well. So we have incentivized, so there's some interesting things to talk about in that regard. So we look at those 9 communities as business districts. There are 618 what we call occupiable units, storefronts. In all of them, there's 800 storefronts in total, but only 618 of them are currently occupiable. And this is something we look at quarterly to get an idea. 90 throughout the course of the year, about 200 of those change hands and what's in them. We are doing a business district initiative that if you start your business after October 1st, 2024, if you have started a business or think about starting your business in those locations, those storefronts, you are eligible for up to a $10,000 grant to put your business there. We have given out so far, $80,000 to small businesses in places of Beaver Falls, New Brighton, Ambridge, and so we're always actively trying to accomplish that. But the idea is to bring those businesses into those communities, fill those communities up with storefronts so you'll see activity being generated. And that's something that I can sell even to the bigger companies. Yeah. We had a company come in and sit down and talk to me, and when I was at the industrial park site, next to an interchange, they said, where's the nearest community that my workforce can go and get a bite to eat and get a coffee or get a donut? Or I said, well, you're in luck. I said, Beaver Falls is right down there. You ever heard of Orm's Donuts? I said, come on, this is 8 o'clock in the morning. They're still open. I'll take you to them.
And that sold them.
I'm not there yet, but every time they do come back, they say, hey, can we have some Orm's Donuts when we come back?
And the next thing, you'll take them to the hot dog shop.
That's right.
Seal the deal.
Hot dog. That'll be it.
Lou VILLOTI is our guest, president of the Beaver County Corporation for Economic Development. There is plenty of optimism on the horizon. It's happening now. And I know you want to know what's happening with the Beaver Valley Mall. We'll talk about that next with Lou VILLOTI on the Best of Beaver County.
Let's face it, work is a large part of your life. Why not choose a job that allows the opportunity of a fulfilling career working with people who appreciate you? St. Barnabas Health System is looking for extraordinary, service-minded people to join our team. Earn and learn with career opportunities on our clinical, housekeeping, and food service teams. For more information and to apply, visit stbarnabashealthsystem.com or call 724-444-JOBS. Jobs that are apart from the ordinary. Find them at St. Barnabas Health System.
It's the best of Beaver County. I'm Mike Romai, and Lou VILLOTI is our guest from the Beaver County Corporation for Economic Development. And as I said, I don't get excited about a lot of things, but every time I talk to Lou, I hear of new things coming to Beaver County and the expansion projects that are happening. And a couple of weeks ago on the show, I don't know how this came up, but somebody brought up the idea that the Beaver Valley Mall, which of course has seen better days, but that the Beaver Valley Mall was being sold and that it was going to be an Amazon distribution site. Now you have information.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that that's not true. Okay. I fielded a lot of phone calls for people that were reading it. You know, it was all through the social media sites, and everybody was saying, "Oh, I work there. I know it's true." I know the listing agent that was recently hired in the last month or so by the mall, and they are actively leasing locations at the mall for retail, and that I can tell you that it has not been sold to Amazon.
Yeah, well, that's good news.
Yeah,
that's
I
good
would
news.
think.
We're
Well,
looking for a rejuvenation.
Well,
there.
I would tell you that. So when this person became the listing agent, I sent them some more recent articles. Is that some malls in particular are beginning to turn around. They're actually seeing a return to malls in some areas, and I sent the information. There's a specific age group. It is basically the 18 to 25-year-olds that are doing most of the driving in that. But there is a chance that those things can see better days.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so they're actively doing that. So, I mean, are companies, because I think that when we talked about the mall once before, it's like Dick's has their standalone, Penny's has a standalone building, so there's nothing much they can do as far as that's concerned because they own the buildings.
Right.
But they're actively trying. I was there at the beginning of August, I believe, when they were doing back-to-school things, and it was back-to-school events, a lot of nonprofits and
Right.
things trying to lure families in. And it was pretty packed at that time.
Yeah, I would think that we'll begin to see. What I'm sensing, and I've been here 5 years now, and I've had more activity in the last 3 months than I've had in the previous 4.5 years that I worked here. So I'm beginning to sense a certain gravity that is taking place, and I think that places like the mall will begin to feel it. I mean, I tell you that there are some of the parcels around the mall are beginning to change hands. They're beginning to get into hands of people that will make them what they can be. Yeah. And so I'm excited about it.
Lou, let's do this right now. Rip up the non-disclosure contract. Tell us who's interested. Who's interested?
I can't tell you who's interested, but I can tell you what's interested. So right now we're seeing a lot of interest in three main areas, and I'll try not to do too much jargon speak when I do it, right? So one is data centers. Data centers tend to be these big locations that do cloud storage, right? So internet cloud storage. So you're looking at some of the bigger players such as Amazon, Microsoft, Google. Those are the ones you would hear of, but there are others that are in that field. So we're seeing a lot of that because they take a lot of energy, and they tend to look at places that have energy infrastructure that has been that is no longer being used, and because you have old mill sites or old redeveloped sites, you have that energy infrastructure in place. So that's one of the people that's one of the sets of groups that are looking. The other is advanced manufacturing of all type, and that is that manufacturing is more than the putting a bolt in a hole. This is more robotic type manufacturing. Some places they even include additive manufacturing. So in the old machine shops, you took material away to make a part, and then the new ones you add material together to make the part.
Okay.
That's additive manufacturing. And the last one that we're seeing a lot of is energy manufacturing. I mentioned it previously. And it's not the manufacture of energy, it is the manufacture of the equipment or parts or things in the supply chain that produce energy or save energy. So we're seeing a lot of those right now. I'm going to add one more that I didn't mention before, and that would be logistics. We're seeing a lot of uptick in the logistics industry, simply because as these manufacturers begin to see locations, they will need the ability to move that product from place to place.
Is it only coming here because there's the carrot on a stick approach that you're offering them some incentive tax wise?
I think it's a lot of it is because the federal government is looking in this location. I will also tell you a lot of it is, and I talk about this a lot, is the fact that Shell was here and is an international company with a multi-billion-dollar investment. When people open up, they say, well, Shell's there has to be something. So that also kind of, the second reason that we're being looked at is because of because of Shell. And I've had companies, when I tell them, how'd you find us? They said, well, we heard about Shell, and so we started looking around.
Yeah.
And so that plays a big role in it. Yeah. It's exciting. There are also challenges that we have to overcome. We talk about energy. If you'd have told me 20 years ago when I started in this business, when we were talking about what makes a site viable, and it was sewer and water and those sort of things, if you'd have told me I'd have had a hard time getting my hands on energy, I'd have told you that I don't believe it. But trying to get power, the amount of energy we need to a given location is much more difficult than it's become much more difficult than I have anticipated, and that is region-wide and statewide.
Yeah, 376, the airport corridor from the airport down. They're redoing the airport. It's supposed to be unveiled in probably next year. A lot happening in 2025, right? So what about business? We're here in the old Michael Baker Jr. headquarters off of 376 in Brighton Township. What about the other properties? I've heard before that people have holds on them on those properties, and they're just waiting for the right time to start developing.
Yeah, I think that's, in some cases, that's true, to hit the market amount. One of the problems in the 376 corridor, and I will take it past the airport, I will take you all the way now to Pittsburgh. And if you travel Pittsburgh up the 376 corridor and look at the industrial parks that were built around office space, you will find that they're vacant. Particular office has taken a huge hit in this market. And so you can drive, I just think that when you drive down towards Pittsburgh on 376, if you look up to your right, you see that building that Burns and Scalo built, that Scalo building, right? There's not one car in the parking lot. Yeah. If you continue on down and you get to even as far as top of Green Tree Hill, and the Burns and Scalo building that sits right there on top of Green Tree Hill, big sign on it, right? Offices for lease. Yeah. The offices in RIDC West, all empty. There's a property a property holder here that has an office space in the Hopewell Industrial Park, Business Park. It's been vacant for a long time. We were even talking to them about maybe acquiring it or working with them to acquire it in some way to be helpful. And I couldn't go near it because I brought brokers in and they said, did what I just told you. Let me take you for a ride. And they took me for a ride and they said, you don't want office space in this market right now.
So, is that because of the pandemic and people started working from home?
Yeah, there is a significant change in the dynamic of how people work, right? And even if they do, you can have folks work share office space, which is pretty common right now. And so you can take your footprint and you can cut it in half. The real question will be, what will it look like? I'm concerned in the long run. So I watch these things through the period. I'm concerned when right now a lot of this property is still leased. Nobody's in it, but it's leased. Those leases were signed either pre-pandemic or during the pandemic, right? And so when those leases run out, those properties will really become vacant. Right, and so watch that, how that affects the property and the market is very concerning. And The good news is, if there is good news, because somebody said that, is that Beaver County has never been a big player in the commercial office space area. We just haven't been. We were always been industrial, and that saved us some of the negative impact that you see in places like the city of Pittsburgh and as you move up through the corridor and RIDC West and places like that.
Very interesting. A couple minutes left. I want to ask you about what's happening in Aliquippa, Vestec up there, and the site, former J&L.
Yeah, so of course we had the big expansion news with Versatex, right? They had 80. It's a $40 million expansion and $80 million, and the governor was there to announce that project. We have the project that is 72 Steel is still an active project. They have received all their construction permits from Aliquippa, and they have everything they need in that regard. They are still negotiating or in issues with some of the projects that they have, some of the issues that they have with the DEP and others and environmental. That's a long process to work through, so they're not there yet. But it is still an active project. We have 72 acres in Aliquippa, basically in 3 parcels, 2 27-acre parcels and 1 14-acre parcel. The math won't work, but there's a reason. Don't do the math. The 2 large parcels are under agreement right now as we speak for an expansion and then for a newer project. So there's a lot of activity there, and we see I take a lot of prospects there. In the last 2 months, we've taken a lot of prospects through there. So it's again, that's looking good.
You mentioned Governor Shapiro, and of course he was on the short list as a nominee for vice president. How much does politics play in all this? As politics change on a 2-year or 4-year basis, does that come into play and these programs can get shut down?
Yeah, so a lot of it is a lot of what we do is we gear up to understand the policy implications of an administration any which way, anywhere they go. And so this doesn't happen in a vacuum, particularly in the state. So when there is when the candidates are running for governor, we have statewide organizations that represent us. For example, ours is the Pennsylvania Economic Development Association. We talk to them, we tell them what our concerns are, and they sit down with the governor and whatever his transition team may begin to look like. So none of that happens in a vacuum. We work very hard to build those policies and say which ones we want to keep. And so they're usually very receptive. I will tell you that, and I don't normally do that sort of thing, but Governor Shapiro has been very good for economic development, and I think you see the response to that from both sides of the aisle with him in that regard. He is very pro-business. And that's a really good thing for us.
Good. Lou VILLOTI, president of the Beaver County Corporation for Economic Development. It's always great talking with you. We never have enough time, but we'll have you back on if you're willing.
Anytime, Mike. I'm always willing to come in and talk.
Thank you. And this is the Best of Beaver County on the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
Thank you for listening to the Best of Beaver County.